Auston Matthews receives a Ted Lindsay nomination, but not the Hart. Dave, that just ain't right. We'll debate it on today's edition of the Locked On Leafs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day.
You're Locked On Maple Leafs, your daily podcast on the Toronto Maple Leafs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome into the Locked On Leafs podcast, a daily Maple Leafs centric podcast hosted by myself, Mike DiStefano, and my co-host, Dave Morassutti. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more right now. New customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 with any winning $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn. And now that we have Dave, the nominees for the Hart Trophy, for pretty much every trophy that there is now, we've now know. You can go and you can make those wagers over on FanDuel. I'm just going to look it up right now to see actually what the award looks like. Did they take them down? Actually, maybe they're down now since they've all been announced. So you can't bet on them anymore, but you were able to bet on them, and I do have some wagers on them. I do have Nathan MacKinnon at 20-1 that I was able to get, but you can still bet futures for the Conn Smythe Award if you got a good lean to this point as to who might be able to win it. Maybe Igor Shesterkin after what the type of performance he put on last night. But I can tell you who you won't be betting on for the Conn Smythe, and that is Auston Matthews. And that's going to be he's going to be the subject of today's podcast. Yesterday we went into Mitch Marner and what the options that they have for him this summer are. If you missed that episode, I implore you to go back and listen to it. Not to toot our own horns, but I thought it was a pretty good conversation breaking down all three of the major options that the Leafs have with Mitch Marner. So you can go check that out. But today we're going to focus on Auston Matthews. And I think it's perfect timing because over the last couple of days, we've seen the final awards get trickled out. And Auston Matthews has been all over the discourse surrounding them because he ended up getting nominated for the Lady Byng. He got nominated for the Selky. He already has won and locked up the Rocket Richard with 69 goals this year. He was nominated for the Ted Lindsay Award, which is the best player in the game as voted on by his peers, but he was not nominated by the Hockey Writers Association for the MVP, the Hart Trophy. So today's show, we're going to kind of discuss whether or not we believe that the writers got it right or whether or not the writers got it wrong. So that's kind of going to be today's discussion by breaking down the season that was for Auston Matthews. And overall, Dave, how do you reflect on Auston Matthews' season? We've had a couple of days to kind of, chill out from the Game 7 fallout. Now, when you think back about the season that Auston Matthews had, what did you make of it?
I mean, I don't think I saw a player who had this purpose to try to reach that milestone of getting to the 70 goals. Like when he realized it was within reach, the gear that shifted and him just going out, popping goals like nothing, right? He's only had 20 goals in his last 25 games. No big whoop.
It got to a point where he needed, I remember us sitting here and we're like, it's kind of attainable. He needs 12 goals in 12 games to get it done. And then it was I don't know. But then he scored again, then had a 2-goal night and then scored again. It's dude, this guy could get it done. And all of a sudden it was he needed 1 goal with 2 games to go. Unfortunately, didn't get it. We all know he was stuck on 69, which is nice. So we can make those jokes. But 70 would have been awesome. And I wonder if he would have reached 70 goals if he would have got a little bit more love from the the PWHPA Pro Hockey Writers PHWA
Pro Hockey Writers Association,
who are the people who vote on the league MVP. If he would have got to 70, do you think that would have given him just that little extra that he needed to be considered one of the top 3 nominations, because he wasn't considered one of the top 3. He's not one of the nominations that they announced. It was McKinnon, McDavid, and Kucherov, who all had great seasons, don't get me wrong. But how much do you think not getting that 70th goal factored into Matthews being left off the top 3?
I think it factored heavily, because there were people talking constantly like, if he reaches 70, how can you keep him off the Hart ballot? We kept hearing that.
They were saying, how can you not give him the Hart, let alone not even ballot? It was like, how do you not just give him the Hart?
Like, right. And it felt like that was a qualifier, which I still think it's ridiculous, right? When you consider, how many trophies did you say he is nominated for again?
He's nominated for the Lady Byng, for the Selky. He won the Rocket Richard, and he's nominated also now for the Ted Lindsay.
So he's in the run. He's already won 1, and he's in the running for 3 more individual trophies.
I would love to go back and see. Maybe I'll do this and have the answer tomorrow. But how many Ted Lindsay winners have also been Selky candidates?
That's a good point. But even my point is, when you look at the Hart Trophy nominees, how many of them are on the other trophy nominations? Other than, like, okay, Ted Lindsay and Hart, they're usually hand in hand. Well,
the only other one you're referring to is Selky. Like,
Selky and Lady Byng.
Lady Byng's not a trophy that I care about, to be honest with you. I prefer he didn't have the Lady Byng, because that means that he was not getting into the mix. I would much prefer him be a controversial on ice figure like a Reeves or maybe not Jamie Benn. That might be going a little too far. But
I was gonna say, we don't want him going that far.
Yeah, he doesn't need to be the choo choo Trouba train. But I would prefer that he's not Lady Byng worthy, to be quite honest with you. Selky all the way. Lady Byng, I don't know how many players want to be nominated for that when all said and done. But like, when you really strip down the season for Auston Matthews and you break it down, like, this was phenomenal. If you ask me, I think this year was better than the MVP season that he had a couple of years ago, where he did get to 60, right? He hit 60, but he just barely hit it, and he stopped there. He got all the way to 69 goals this season, Dave. 69 goals, which is outrageous. Like, just such a crazy feat to even get to. He was 1 away from 70. Is just wild. 107 points in total. And even take a look at, like, the underlying numbers defensively. They were stellar. Led all forwards in block shots at 5-on-5. He was 5th in takeaways. Very low giveaway margin. Like, just in general, he had a great season, two-way hockey. And it's reflective in where he was, the fact that he was given, Ted Lindsay, Rocket Richard, and a Selky nomination as well, based on that 200-foot game that he has. And I just find it absolutely ludicrous that he was not nominated for the MVP, though. Like, I do think that this is a snub. Yesterday, I kind of took to Twitter and said, I don't know if it's necessarily a snub, but it's surprising to see a 69 goal-scoring Selky candidate who now has been voted as one of the 3 best players by his peers, as a Ted Lindsay candidate as well, not be nominated for the MVP. I found it very bizarre and odd that happened. But again, thought, yeah, good seasons. But then I looked into the numbers, Dave, and now I'm beginning to turn a little bit more. Sour's the word, but I'm going to be beating the drum a lot harder that Matthews did get snubbed and 1,000% should have been an MVP nomination. I don't know if you feel the same way or if you have a strong belief in this, but I've gotten to the point where if I were doing my ballot, Matthews would have been number 2 on my ballot. I do think McKinnon is number 1. I think he wins the MVP. I think he should. But for me, I had Auston Matthews as my number 2. And the fact that he was left off and was the number 4 is tough for him.
That's my thinking too, right? It's not that we think he's the alt-right winner. For him to not be nominated, like, okay, McKinnon, absolutely unreal season. I think like there's no player who's more valuable to his team than Nathan McKinnon. Like I could only imagine what Colorado would be like if they didn't have Nathan McKinnon. You can make the. I think the thing is everyone looks at
make that
McDavid
case with any of these players, though,
and that's the thing, right? But I think people look at McDavid and constantly drive that home, and that's what makes him almost like an automatic. Which again, I don't think
a Ted Lindsay nom though, which is wild to me. Also,
that's that. But again, it kind of shows. I think the respect that the players had for what Matthews did this season, right?
Yeah.
If he wins the Ted, I don't think he'll win the Ted Lindsay. I think again it'll be. I think McKinnon will do the clean sweep of the two.
Same.
But again, it kind of just shows. I'm not going to say it's a Toronto bias because I don't think that's the reason either. I just wonder if it's because people feel like the Leafs are just such a well-rounded team that Matthews isn't viewed as as valuable when you look at McDavid, Kucherov, and McKinnon. Like Kucherov was the reason why the Tampa Bay Lightning didn't fall down. They didn't go completely out of what's the word I'm looking for. They just didn't completely fall off with Andrei Vasilevsky.
Yeah.
Right. You could also say like McDavid, when he wasn't playing at his best this year, the Oilers weren't exactly doing well.
They were terrible. They had the coach fired.
They had a coach fired, but I also think goaltending had a lot to do with that as well, not just McDavid's play. Yeah. McDavid was also hurt. So I just wonder if the hockey writers thought of it that way, that those other players just meant more to their teams.
Well, I'm quite perplexed by the outcome, because if there's one thing that I've come to learn about the hockey writers, it's that they are quite like analytically driven. I think is fair to say.
Yeah.
So I've got some numbers that I think speak to why Matthews should have been at least one of the nominations over one of these three players, or over Kucherov and McDavid. I've got some numbers. Let's take a break. We'll come back. I'll explain my position, and you could tell me whether I'm being a biased homer or not. But I believe that there was a snub here, and Auston Matthews should have been one of the top three nominations. I know he came in at 4, so it's not like it's a crazy leap and he was left off ballots. I'm sure he was number 4 for most people, but he should have been top 3, hands down. And I'll tell you why on the other side. And what we're also going to do, Dave, we're going to give our Auston Matthews jersey away today. That is in the card. So that's going to be coming up in just a little bit as well. So you're not going to want to leave us, as we will be doing that giveaway shortly. To one of our 800 and something people that
879.
879 people. Wow. So one of you lucky 879 people will win that jersey, and that's coming up in just a little bit. But first, a word from our show sponsors. Dave?
Today's episode of the Locked On Leafs podcast is brought to you by Indeed. There is no I in team, but there is one in Indeed, and that's the hiring platform you need to build yours. Indeed is the hiring platform where you can attract, interview, and hire all in one place. Instead of spending hours on multiple job sites searching for candidates with the right skills, Indeed's a powerful hiring platform that can help you do it all. They streamline the hiring process with powerful tools that help you find matched candidates. With Instant Match, over 80% of employers get quality candidates whose resumes on Indeed match their job description the moment they sponsor a job, according to U.S. Indeed data. Indeed does the hard work for you. Indeed shows you candidates whose resumes on Indeed fit your description immediately after you post, so you can hire faster. Even better, Indeed's the only job site where you pay for applications that meet your must-have job requirements. And Indeed is an unbelievably powerful hiring platform, delivering 4 times more hires than all other job sites combined, according to Talent Nest. So join more than 3 billion businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. Start now with a $75 sponsored job credit to upgrade your job post at Indeed.com/lockedon. Offer good for for a limited time. Indeed.com/locked-on. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire. You need Indeed.
Welcome back to the Locked On Leafs podcast. It's Mike DiStefano and Dave Morassutti with you. And just a reminder, just because the Leafs season is over, the podcast does not end. We do go all year round, all throughout the postseason, all throughout the offseason. We're still going to be sticking with you here and delivering you daily Maple Leafs content. So make sure that you continue to subscribe, hit the little notification bell as well if you'd like to be notified for when we drop those new episodes each and every morning. And today's episode, we're focusing on Auston Matthews and the season that he had. And in my belief, he was snubbed for an MVP nomination. And I'm gonna get into why, Dave. Okay, I'm gonna get into why. I made a tweet the other. Actually, maybe you can go and find that too. I should have sent it to you earlier today. I apologize, but on my Twitter, scroll down a little bit. Yesterday when the MVP was announced and Matthews was not part of it, I made a tweet saying that I was surprised, and I accompanied it with a chart that I made. And the chart, the reason why I want it pulled up is just because it's a good visual as to how good of a season Auston Matthews had. And when you actually take a look at 5-on-5 numbers and primary numbers in particular, Auston Matthews closes that points gap, because the only argument that I've really heard for why McKinnon, Kucherov, and McDavid deserved to be in this race over him was because Matthews didn't get enough points. He finished X amount of points behind the rest of the guys. But when you break it down to like 5-on-5 points and even further to primary points, Auston Matthews was right there and even better than a couple of these guys. So if you're watching on YouTube, you can see how many of these categories that Auston Matthews led among the 4 nominees here for the trophy. So Auston Matthews this season had 61 points at 5-on-5, which was the 4th most between the 4, granted, given that. So in total points, he was still lower. McKinnon had the most. But when you break it down to primary points, Auston Matthews had 55 primary points, which was second among those 4 players. Kucherov had 50, and McDavid had 51. McKinnon had 61. That led the way. But 55 out of 61 points at 5-on-5 were primary. And why I think that's important is because primary points mean that you directly influence the goal. You either scored it yourself, which Matthews did 38 times, tops in the league at 5-on-5, or you set it up with the primary assist that led to the goal, which again, Matthews did that more times than the other 2, Kucherov and McDavid. So when it comes to primary numbers, I think that those are important because it shows that that player is driving play. And when you break it down into that category, Auston Matthews surpasses how many points Kucherov and McDavid both had at 5-on-5 when it comes to primary points. So they picked up a lot of secondary assists along the way and picked up a lot of power play cookies as well. And I know it's a little ironic that I'm sitting here talking about how I'm almost, tossing aside power play points, considering the postseason that the Maple Leafs just had. But I do think that it matters here when you're taking a look at this. So that is one statistic that I really, really think should be looked into more. And the fact that Matthews was second ahead of Kucherov, ahead of McDavid, given how many more points those 2 had in total over Matthews. So his primary points percentage per point, let's say, significantly higher than the rest of those guys. First in goals, obviously, but it's the defensive side of the puck, which is where I don't think Matthews got nearly enough love in the MVP race. And I keep hearing a lot of people saying, oh, he probably shouldn't even be nominated for the Selke. He's only doing it because Toronto bias. Of the 4 guys who were nominated for the MVP, Auston Matthews had the least amount of giveaways, had the most amount of takeaways, had the most amount of block shots, and had the highest faceoff percentage, and had the second most amount of hits. like, we're talking about a guy who led all defensive categories essentially between Kucherov, McDavid, and McKinnon and himself. So you scored 38 goals, 69 goals in total, really. You were second in primary points. You had by far and away the best defensive metrics, and were most effective as a 200-foot player than all three of those other guys. How the hell did you not get one of the three nominations? Explain that to me, Dave. Explain it to me.
Well, Mike, I wish I could explain it to you. It's just one of those things where people, especially like you talk about writers being, and a lot of them follow the analytics and things like that. I also just think that there are also still writers that follow the traditional stats a little bit too much because, like, oh, how can you? Because I think like McDavid when he got 100,
69 goals isn't an impressive enough stat for you?
Well, because then they're gonna look at McDavid got 100 assists. Well, I mean, so did Kucherov.
Guy, 69 goals is more impressive than 100 assists.
I know it is. I'm not saying it's not.
And guess what? Guess who else got 100 assists? Kucherov, the exact same year, 2 days later. Yeah. So is it that impressive when two people have been able to do it?
In my opinion,
one's done what Matthews has done in 30 years.
Exactly, right? I don't know how the hockey writers don't view the historical part of Matthews' season and say, man, this is just like one of those seasons where it's, I wouldn't say unicorn because we all know Auston Matthews is capable of doing it again, right?
Yeah, for sure.
But at the same time, he set a new standard, right? Mm-hmm. When we talk about getting to 60 and then now getting to 69, everyone kind of thinks that 70 is not out of the question, right?
Yeah,
for this
attainable.
Guy.
It's attainable.
Right. And I do think that when you're looking at, you know what, for Matthews, the Hart Trophy is a very prestigious trophy. Don't get me wrong. I think he'll probably value the Ted Lindsay one. I mean, he's already won it, and he should value that one more.
I personally value the Ted Lindsay more, and I thought that was the case, but I've spoken with like a few NHL players, and surprisingly, the Hart Trophy kind of means a little bit more. It surprised me.
Interesting.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, when you think about the Hart Trophy, though, and those who have won it, it does like you're in like a prestige company. I do get that part there. So for me, yeah, like this is a tough one when you consider that all he went through to get himself to 69 goals. But here's the other thing: getting to you mentioned all those stats, getting to 69 goals without sacrificing the other side of the puck. Because, no offense, when Alex Ovechkin was scoring 60, when Stamkos was scoring 60, even McDavid scoring 60, none of them were probably doing what Matthews was doing on the other side of the puck. None of them were Selky nominees.
And a lot of those goals
were power play.
On the power play. Like, I think it was 51 even strength goals for Auston Matthews. So, like 38 5-on-5, but 51 at even strength. Which I guarantee you, neither Stammer or Ovechkin came even close to that number when they had their 60 goal and 65 goal campaign. So like that is definitely something that I think needs to be taken into account. Like Matthews did the majority of his damage having to go through 5 people as opposed to 4, which is what Kucherov, McDavid, and McKinnon did all season long.
I'll add this. When McDavid got 64 goals last year, which I always forget that he had 64 goals last year.
Yeah.
39 of them were at even strength. Like 39 even strength goals, that's impressive.
It's very impressive, but that's 12 less than what Matthews did this year. 12 less than Matthews. But it comes down to 2 things for me, okay? I'll for Matthews, I'll go back to what Sheldon Keefe said actually. When he won his first MVP a couple of years ago when he had that 60-goal campaign. He said the object of the game of hockey is to score more goals than your opponent. And when you have the guy who scores the most goals in the league, it's pretty valuable. And that's almost a mic drop right there. like realistically, that's almost a mic drop in a way. But then when you think about all the other intangibles that he brings on the defensive side of the puck, the fact that he's a Selke nom on top of that really makes me question how the hell this guy didn't even get a nomination and is left off the top three leaderboard, off the podium, which bothers me. And I'll say one more thing, okay? Nikita Kucherov, how the hell does a guy score 144 points? Okay, 144 points.
I know exactly where you're going with this.
He was a +8. A +8, Dave, which means he was only on the ice for 8 more goals than was scored on him. Okay, and I know plus minus is an archaic stat. It's not one that I like to use, but I think with context it makes sense, and it adds something to this, right? You scored 144 goals were scored while you were on the ice, which means what, 136 goals were scored again. Now, I guess to be fair, it's a 5-on-5 stat, so it doesn't include the power play cookie. So it's not 144 and 160, but still, he was only on the ice for 8 more goals for than against, right? When you look at the other 3 nominations, Matthews, McDavid, and McKinnon, they were all on the ice for 31 or more goals for their team than was scored on when they were on the ice. So that to me should have pushed Kucherov to 4th on the ballot, right? That to me pushes him to 4th, which would have put Matthews in anyways. So that's where I stand on that whole conversation.
Yeah, I for me, I don't think a guy just being able to put up points should be enough of a qualifier. I think you've got to be able to do more than put up points to get to that level of, I guess, nomination as a valuable player. Because yes, scoring a lot of points is valuable, but so is also being able to play on the other side of the puck.
Yeah, and let me give you this one too, because a lot of people come at Kucherov and they're using the Taylor Hall example where it's like, well, he's scored like, I don't know, 40 or 50 more points than the next best guy on his team. And yeah, I can appreciate that for sure. It counts, I suppose. But then when I look at Matthews and you want to talk about, again, I'm going to go back to plus minus, just using it as context, right? It's not like the Leafs were out there and consistently putting up plus nights, right? It was just Matthews who was doing that because William Nylander, who finished just 9 points below Matthews, there was a 30-point plus minus between the two. So Auston Matthews, while he was on the ice, was not allowing a whole lot, was not allowing a lot of goals, but was scoring a whole bunch, right? So you talk about a discrepancy within the team. It's a 30-point plus minus discrepancy between Matthews and Nylander, who was their second best player this season. So again, I don't like using plus minus. I don't think it's a very good stat, but when you accompany it with some other background information, I think that it is actually quite notable and usable in the argument against Kucherov, not necessarily for Matthews, because his plus minus was equivalent to like McDavid and McKinnon, but for all of those guys to be far more superior than Nikita Kucherov, I think makes that worth noting at the very least, and disqualifies Kucherov from my ballot personally.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, it didn't disqualify him from the majority of the Hockey Writers ballots.
No, it didn't. So none of that matters because no one cares about me anyways. But we'll see. It would be quite hilarious if Matthews ends up winning the Ted Lindsay and then is not even nominated for the MVP because that would just be stupid if that was the case. All right, Dave, let's take a break. When we come back, we're going to do our jersey giveaway. We're trying to give away an Auston Matthews jersey to one of you lucky listeners, and we'll do that next. You're listening to the Locked On Leafs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. It's winner take all in the NBA and NHL, and FanDuel is giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 to bet on spreads, money lines, player props, and more. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make every playoff shot count. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Welcome back into the Locked On Leafs podcast. Mike DiStefano and Dave Morassutti with you. We gave you guys a couple of weeks to get your submissions in for this Auston Matthews jersey giveaway. We've had over 800 entries for the draw. So first and foremost, before we actually do the draw, just want to thank everybody for, tuning in to us bozos talk every day about the Toronto Maple Leafs, especially the everydayers, those loyal listeners who are consistently, liking our videos, commenting down below. We read all the comments. We appreciate them all. And, all the people who've come up to both of us when we're in public and express that they love the show, listen every day. So, this was a big milestone for us to hit 5,000 subscribers, but obviously we couldn't do it without the subscribers, which is you guys watching and listening to this show, which was why we decided to thank you by giving one of our lucky subscribers a chance to win this Auston Matthews jersey. So for Dave and I, we both do sincerely want to thank everybody for helping us get to this milestone. And, just know that we're not done, right? The next one's 10,000. We got to get to 10K and we'll give away another jersey. So keep subbing, keep following, keep sharing with your friends and telling everybody else about Locked On Leafs, because we're not going anywhere either. We're all the way through the postseason and all the way through the offseason. And I have a feeling it's going to be a busy one in Toronto. So you're not going to want to miss a single episode of the Locked On Leafs podcast. Without further ado, Dave, I hand it off to you. You can walk us through the giveaway process.
Yeah, so essentially the reason why we had you fill out the Google form is to make my life easier. It's just makes it easier for me to track. We had over 170 people submit their names. I did notice one or two duplicates. So
870, by the way. You said 100, 870.
Sorry, 800. Sorry if that didn't come out clear. So the part of the reason we did the form is so we had all the names and get all the information. If you put your name down and didn't put your contact information, that's gonna be a little bit of a problem.
Yeah,
we're gonna have to figure that part out. So the way we're gonna do this, I had all the names in a Google Doc, in a Excel spreadsheet. I found a website that will allow me to input all those names, and we're going to do a draw.
Randomizer.
We're gonna it's a name picker randomizer, similar to how when people would do like a draft, like a fantasy draft order.
Yeah.
Right. The way we're gonna do it, so I'm gonna pull it up right now. That way we got it in front of us. I'm gonna hit the draw button. We're not gonna do it once. We're not gonna do it twice. We're gonna do it 3 times. So on the third one, the person that's name shows up on the third one will be the winner. Similar to the draft lottery, they don't just pick one ball. It's like a, it's like a randomizer in that regard.
Apparently, they had to do it like a lot of times. I don't know if you saw the report, but like it kept being San Jose and then San Jose again, as opposed to San Jose and Chicago. So they had to like keep doing it until they got a second ball or whatever for Chicago to get it. So, obviously San Jose wasn't going to get both picks. But anyways, hopefully that doesn't happen here. Well, actually, it would be kind of hilarious if the same person shows up 3 times, but unlikely.
No, unlikely to happen. It just also reminds me of when the Lafreniere draft lottery was happening.
God. Yeah.
Why do again this team giving me PTSD? It wasn't even the Leafs' fault. Honestly, it wasn't even the Leafs' fault.
He's starting to get going too. Had a couple of goals last night.
What a player he's become.
Yeah. He's got a long ways to go too. Like he's only 21. Like he's gonna be a player. Like, people are trying to write him off as a bust. I don't think so. I think he's had 28 goals this year, and he's making a difference in the playoffs. Anyway,
he's not even like a primary. I know.
This isn't a laughy love fest conversation. We're trying to give away an Auston Matthews jersey, a guy who scored 69 goals. So who cares about the 28 goal scorer? Let's talk about the 69 goal scorer from this season, and let's get one of our lucky listeners his jersey in hand. Right. So let's go. First one, click the button.
All right. So that's the
All
first
right.
one.
So that's the first one. And it's possible that, Leonard could possibly come through and get another one, but we are doing it 3 times. So that's one. Do it a second time. It is randomizing. Mark McMillan is the second one. So whoever is the name across the screen after we press the draw button, after Dave presses the draw button, will be the winner, and we will contact you and get you that jersey. So, Dave, press the button. And the winner of the Auston Matthews jersey is Hal LaPierre. Hal LaPierre. And hopefully Hal doesn't live in Quebec with a French last name and is a Leaf hater. That would suck. Hopefully Hal's a big time Leaf fan, and a big time Auston Matthews fan. So Hal, congratulations. Thanks to all. It was 879. I guess 776.
It says 776, but it was. Yeah, I don't know why it says 776. It should have been. There was more than that.
Anyways, thank you to everybody.
There was also a lot of duplicates on there, guys.
Yeah, that's probably why. Lots of duplicates. But thank you to everybody who submitted and subscribed. So we'll get a hold of Hal, and we will figure out how to get the Auston Matthews jersey over to you, pal. So thank you so much and appreciate it. And thank you to all who subscribed and everyone, every single one of our loyal daily listeners, our day oneers and our everydayers. We really do appreciate you guys as well. But another reminder, we keep chugging through the playoffs and through the off season. Leafs coverage is 365, and we'll bring you all of that right here on the Locked On Leafs podcast all the way through and even through the off season. All right, that'll do it for us here today on the podcast. I'd like to thank you all for listening and supporting the show. You can subscribe to the Locked On Leafs podcast on all platforms and receive daily Leafs content. Follow myself on X at Mickey_Canuck. Follow Dave at D_Morassutti, and follow the show as well at Locked On Leafs. Go ahead, leave a like and a comment down below if you would. Let us know, should Auston Matthews have been nominated for the MVP? Was it a hashtag snub? Let us know with a hashtag snub in the comments if you believe so. We'll be back with another episode for you guys tomorrow. The coaches and all that, or the management, are set to speak tomorrow. So we'll probably discuss what we think we'll hear, what we want to hear. And we haven't heard anything about Sheldon Keefe yet either. I'm curious what that could possibly mean. We'll also get into that tomorrow. But until then, keep it locked right here on Locked On Leafs.